Hey guys, if this is your first video of mine, even though I only have two, I want to say welcome, glad to have you here. If you're someone who watched the last video, I want to say thank you. Really appreciate the views and the few nice comments that we got. So we almost reached 1,000 views and 40 likes on the last one. So how about we try for 1,000 views and 50 likes for this video? I'd appreciate it. Thanks, guys. When it comes to JJK, I think it's written in such a way that the message gets buried under a lot of superfluous stuff that seems like it might be the message or it might be the meaning of the story, and they're most definitely not. For example, around this time last year, there was a general consensus going around that Jujutsu Kaisen was a story about how death is random and how it can come upon anyone. Personally, I never agreed to this because I think that all shonen, no matter how dark, always want to have a hopeful message. So even if some part of the story is telling us that this negative thing can happen to anyone, we have our main character Yuji, who, while it seems like he's being punished by the story, these are all just challenges, things he must overcome, and trials, like the hero's journey essentially, all to prove that his way of life, that clinging to your humanity, is the correct way moving forward. Now, how does this relate to Yuta? Because this is a Yuta video, and we've already done a Yuji video. You should check it out. There's only one other video on this channel, so that's the other one. I've seen a lot of like Yuta is a monster videos. Like if I type that in the search bar on YouTube, I'm probably gonna get like 1,000 options. It's not even gonna be like properly filtered. But I think this is another instance of people missing the forest for the trees. Because I think one big aspect of Jujutsu Kaisen that is not talked about often enough is the theme of identity, and essentially the difference between how people view you and how you view yourself, and even how this affects your abilities. I think in Jungian psychology, there's like your ego, your alter, and your shadow. And your shadow is like the parts of you that you don't show to other people, or something like that. I don't remember. A lot of people see Yuta as a monster essentially just because of his abilities, and he is more than willing to play that role. But I'm not convinced that that's the role that Yuta was born for. Let's take a look at another special talent, Gojo Satoru, who is known as the strongest. He's probably the strongest sorcerer in history, just going off base abilities, like the things he can do and the things he had access to. Like when he was born, the like curse birds evolved, so he's special. Yuta has been called second only to Gojo in on unusual abilities. I don't think that means he's like the second strongest person after Gojo, but I personally do think it means that the two of them share this messianic like bond. Like they are a sort of messianic figure in the world of Jujutsu. Although I'd go as far as to say maybe Gojo isn't like a messiah, and he's more like Moses, like in the Bible. If you don't know, Moses could lead the children of God like to the promised land, but he could not go into it. And essentially, I think that's kind of like what's happening with Gojo right now and Yuta, because I think it's Gojo's role to shepherd people to what lies beyond, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he'd be allowed to witness what he built, basically. So now I have to wonder, now that Yuta has taken the role of Moses, basically he lives in Gojo's body, or he's going to be in Gojo's body, is this going to lead to his untimely demise? Because it just seems like it. Now, it's no surprise really that people latch onto like the edgier and darker themes of Jujutsu Kaisen, because this is the way the story is presented to people. It's presented in such a way where it's covered in darkness. Like, let's take the very power system, for example, cursed energy. You essentially have a system that's built on negative energy. And this is almost like very meta in a way. So I'm not trying to sound like I know the series better than you guys or anything like that. I'm just trying to offer a different point of view, because I think that um, a lot of the brilliance that Gege puts into the story is missed. For example, people often compare Jujutsu Kaisen to like Chainsaw Man, and I'm not here to open that comparison. I'm not here to compare manga. I love like comparing manga, but like not to point out one is better than the other. I just love everything that I read. But essentially, a lot of people think the character writing in JJK is lacking, which I do not particularly disagree with that, but I think that a lot of it is made up for in themes and symbology and just the layout of the story itself. So, yeah, I don't think that people latching onto the negative aspects of the story is particularly a bad thing. Like I said, cursed energy, like when you have other power systems, cursed energy is not too different from every other power system. This is why I don't like when people say, oh, this power system is better than da, 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 because realistically speaking, Nen, Ki from Dragon Ball, cursed energy. Obviously, there's differences. I feel like between Ki and Nen, the only difference is that Nen lists out every single thing you can do. And Ki, you can just do something, and there's no like one school for it. Just like because Nen, there's like the Shingen Ryu school or whatever. They're the ones who created like the style of Nen that we all see in the story, and that's like Netero's martial arts school. But like all these are they're like spiritual powers. They come from like in a sense, a higher realm, a higher. They give a person a higher consciousness. Curse energy does not particularly do that, in my opinion. Like it's a different kind of power system in philosophy. While the applications are very similar, the philosophy of curse energy is quite negative. Even the way Kenjaku talks about curse energy, he talks about it like it's a fuel source, not like it's like, for example, chakra in Naruto is like a connective tissue. It's meant to bring everybody together. That's the original purpose of it. But like it became weaponized and used in a similar way to cursed energy and how cursed energy is being used right now. That was a bit of a tangent. So let's get back to Yuta. There's a lot of meaning to his name. So if we start with the first name, the characters in his first name refer to grief, abundance, and melancholy, which totally fits with Yuta as he is our resident sad boy, being haunted basically most of his life by the love of his life. We can see how this affects him in like his demeanor and his physical appearance. He's always like closed off. He doesn't want to talk to people, especially on Volume Zero. There's bags under his eyes, which are very prominent. Um, I heard Kishimoto once mention that you're not supposed to make your or his editor told him you're not supposed to give your protagonist like double lidded eyes. You give them like single lidded eyes so they look like more approachable. If Yuta was ever going to be the main character, which he was in Volume Zero, that's they're already breaking the cardinal rule. His name also means someone with a lot of friends, and we see this with Yuta. Like this is a major theme in his character. Like he loves his friends, and his friends are like kind of his anchor to like reality, like this dark world of Jujutsu that has been coated in a sea of just sorrow. He's able to anchor himself and be the pillar that people need only because he has his friends. Now, his last name, I'm not really, it's pretty esoteric. So it has something to do with the five phases, which is like, it's this Chinese philosophy that kind of blends into like yin and yang. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's like there's the five elements, which are like metal, wood. I had to get those ones out of the way because they're a bit they're a bit weird compared to what we're used to. And there's fire, water. I don't think there's earth. So it's metal, wood, fire, water, and I don't know. I don't know what the other one is to be honest. But yeah. So another thing that I've seen people not really point out regarding Yuta, I've not seen that has been touched upon in Yuta. So we talk about how he's a member of the Fujiwara and the Sugawara clan. Now, initially, this was like it was kind of like a throwaway line because I was wondering why Gojo was like messing up the names. But obviously, most mangaka do things kind of intentionally, even if it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes they might run into a happy accident. And after doing a bit of research, I think I found out that Yuta might not only be related to the Fujiwara and Sugiwara clans, but he's probably also a descendant of all three of the vengeful spirits because I'm pretty sure that two of them come from the Fujiwara clan and one of them come from the Sugiwara clan. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. So in a way, Yuta is like this. He really is like a child of prophecy, like a special child. So where am I going with this? Now I know it's no surprise to anybody that Gege is a big fan of Bleach, and I know a lot of people say that bankais aren't really like domains. I get the sentiment, but a lot of bankais do kind of like cover an area, so in a way they kind of act like a domain. I don't think that's the only thing that inspired domains. We still got like territories from Yu Yu Hakusho. and of course, Reality Marbles from the Fate Nasuverse series. Now, let's talk about Ichigo for a bit. Gege loves Bleach, and he just loves old shonen and stuff, and he likes to put it all together and go about it his own way. And I think Yuta is his own version of essentially Ichigo. So let's look at the surface level similarities. It might be a bit of a reach, I'm not gonna lie, but they're both gifted children from a blessed line. They lost a loved one at a young age, and this essentially changes their personality. Now, they go in the opposite directions. As kids, they're kind of similar because they're kind of like good boys. Like they're like happy good boys. Even though Yuta was like kind of like sickly as a child, and Ichigo used to cry a lot. You could kind of like see the similarities there. And then when their loved one dies, being right in front of them, might I add you, being Ichigo's mom and Rika for Yuta, they kind of go in the opposite directions, where Yuta becomes like a recluse, kind of like almost like a loser, but not really, just he keeps to himself, but he kind of gets bullied. Meanwhile, Ichigo doesn't become a bully, but he goes down the delinquent route, too cool for school, always frowning, even though we learn that he puts in a lot of effort in like school, like he puts in a lot of effort and he pretends like he doesn't study. But yeah, he kind of wears a mask, like that is not his real self. And for those of you who don't know, let me just give a little background on Ichigo. There's different races in Bleach. They're all about like spiritual races, even though I doubt any of you don't know this. And Ichigo is a character that is connected to every race. It's kind of a meme at this point that Ichigo has every power, but it really is part of the theme of the story for him to be like that. Because essentially, Ichigo is meant to be a character within his story that makes the impossible become possible. And I think Yuta plays a similar role in JJK, just simply being the descendants of, well, according to my theory, being the descendant of all three vengeful spirits, but also we've confirmed in the story that he is a descendant of the Fujiwara and Sugiwara clans. Those are just like surface level comparisons, but you can see how I came to that conclusion. We can talk about like other things as well, because we've got like Kinjaku is basically Aizen. I doubt anybody's gonna argue that, but he's just like a crazy kinky Aizen. And then we've got the merger, which in a way is kind of like the Hogyoku, because the Hogyoku in Bleach was like, so it was retconned. At first, it was supposed to be something that would tear through the boundaries of Shinigami and Hollow, because they are like opposite ends of the spectrum. But then eventually it was revealed to be like, I don't know, a piece of the Soul King or like a wish granting device kind of thing. So anyway, it kind of acts similar to what the merger, well, the pre-retcon version kind of acts similar to what the merger is right now. So another prevalent theme in Jujutsu Kaisen, which is becoming pretty obvious with Yuta taking over Gojo's body, is sorcerers as tools and not as human beings, as cogs even. And that's the word Yuji used. He said he's just a cog in the machine. Now, it's, you know, something about Jujutsu Kaisen, like I probably said 3 times in this video, it takes inspiration or ideas from like a lot of different manga and anime. And the idea of being a tool essentially is a big part in Naruto. In fact, that is probably the main theme. If anybody tells you it's hard work beats talent, they're wrong. But it's 2024, so I know that we've all moved past that. But essentially, I don't want to go too deep into the woods of it, but the first arc starts with like Zabuza, and when they go to the Hidden Mist village. And you know what, prior to that, Naruto was seen as the container for the fox. He wasn't seen as a person. And Iruka was the first person who saw him as a person, which led him to like get better like mentally, because he was in a bad place. From there on, he meets Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi. They go on a mission to the Land of the Waves. The main theme of the Land of the Waves is when you have something or someone you want to protect, you get stronger, but you can't do that if you only view other people as tools. That was a big part of the arc, because towards the end of the arc, like when Haku dies, Naruto starts crying and saying, "Yo, don't you care?" to Zabuza, and Zabuza is acting like stone faced because he believes that as a shinobi you should only act as a tool. And then Naruto says something which is pretty deep. He's like, "If I become as strong as you, am I gonna become like you? Like, am I gonna be like uncaring?" Which is a pretty deep line for a 12-year-old. So that also applies in Jujutsu Kaisen. There's a slight difference though. So in Naruto, you're kind of like taught to see people as people and not as tools or Jinchuriki or whatever they may be. In Jujutsu Kaisen, And then in Naruto, when you don't do that, you get punished by the story. So people always make fun of talk no jutsu, right? Naruto usually beats up an opponent, talks to them a little. If you notice, every single fight where Naruto does not talk no jutsu, he takes a loss. And when I mean a loss, it doesn't mean he loses the fight, but he regresses in the story. When he did not try to understand Deidara, or not saying you can always understand all the criminals or whatever, but when you try not to understand Deidara and he was just mad and he wanted to just kill him for Gaara's sake, Gaara died, and it took someone else to revive Gaara. When he was just trying to run through Orochimaru and get Sasuke, like Sasuke was basically a possession of his, he lost control, still lost to Orochimaru, and injured Sakura. When he wanted to fight Kakuzu, and Kakuzu was like, he didn't even see Kakuzu as a person. He was just an obstacle to overcome to like get to Sasuke. And yeah, you don't always have to see people as people, especially in the ninja world, but he gets punished for it because the move that he learns that he thinks, oh yeah, this is definitely gonna help me catch up to Sasuke. He can't use it because it destroys his arm when he does. So that's how that works in Naruto. But in JJK, it's been shown that if you try to be like, if you try to just be a cog in the system. Now, in JJK, it kind of looks like if you treat yourself as a cog, that is the correct mentality. But I believe that what this Yuta versus Sukuna Part 2 is going to show us with Gojo's body is that you're not just a tool, you're an actual person. Because, well, it seemed that Yuji was rewarded for stating he was a cog. He wasn't really, like, there was no, like, progress made within his story. So, yeah, I kind of think that's the theme and the lesson we're going to get from Gojo versus, Goda, I guess, versus Sukuna. Now, we've done all the character talks, and that was fun. But let's get to the interesting bits. It's a little sad for Gojo because he's, well, maybe in heaven he can watch what's going to go down. But we're about to witness what I think is going to be one of the greatest fights in Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I need to preface this by saying I am not a Yuta Glazer. If I was to pick a side, like Hikari or Yuta, I don't really pick sides when it comes to characters. I just like series. I'd probably go with Hikari because as he's more my type of character. But Yuta's pretty freaking cool. Like, for an emo sad boy character that is usually not my archetype, he's pretty cool. So let's talk about how strong he could possibly be with Gojo's body. Now, people complain about the last chapter that came out, but we need to keep in mind, those are only 7 pages. A chapter is usually double that size. We don't know how that chapter would have ended if Gege was in better health. So prayers for Gege. Let's hope he gets better and is taken care of and takes care of his health. That aside now, how strong could Yuta possibly be? So the first thing I want to look at is, can he still use copy? Because if he can still use his copy, then that opens up a whole other dimension for the type of power that he's going to have. It's essentially, we have Gojo, who is the hardware, the superior hardware, the perfect hardware. And we've got Yuta, who's got better software than Gojo did, because he's got way more cursed energy. I'm not saying that makes him like stronger or a better fighter or anything. I'm just saying when you put those two things together, I'm lost for words to describe what might happen. As we can see, it's taken Yuta a bit of time to like acclimatize to Gojo's body, but I think that's all part of it, because you're not just gonna get all the information and everything at once. So he's just trying to like, it's like when you get into a new car and you're just trying to figure out how it works. So what other things could he possibly do? Let's say he can still use copy. We've seen his ring is still on his own body and Rika's there crying. Is there a chance that Rika's gonna come and like assist him? If he puts on the ring on Gojo's body, will he have access to Rika's abilities? The body is the soul and the soul is the body. So who is this character right now? Now let's talk about domain expansions as well. Yuta's domain was basically unlimited blade works from Fate Stay Night. It worked almost exactly the same way. It was different swords scattered around with different curse techniques. He doesn't know what copy curse technique is in the sword until he grabs it and he can attack with it. Now, I'm going to go a little bit scatterbrained here. We are assuming that when a body and a soul that are separate from two separate entities come together, you got to go one way or the other. What if, just because Yuta is a child of the impossible, because I was rereading the fight with Ryu Ishigori and Uro, because I really like Ryo Shigori. But I noticed something recently, and I'm starting to think that this might be the possibility. Now, stick with me on this. Uro said she was an assassin, right? She wasn't given like a name or anything like that as part of that assassin group. Later down the line, someone gave her a name just so she could be executed. The person was a he, she claimed, and he gave her name so she could be executed because he killed his own people. Now, what I think probably happened is whoever this person was either a Fujiwara or a Sugawara. They had a relationship with someone of the other clan. Then they had a child, and it became a whole mess. And maybe the people found out he had a kid, he had them all killed, and then pretended it was Uro that did it. That's kind of the theory I have going. Now, also the body of that guy and the body Kenjaku took over when he was talking to Kashimo look eerily similar, and that guy kind of looks like Yuta in a weird way. So I kind of always assumed that Kenjaku, or not kind of, initially I assumed that Kenjaku had seen the copy technique like a billion times before in the past because curse techniques are inherited. But now I'm starting to think that what if he hopped in the body of one of the descendants of this Fujiwara Sugiwara hybrid, and that's why he was never too worried about Yuta because he'd seen this before. Now, I say this all to say that Yuta might make the impossible possible. This is going to be a super reach, but what if he can combine both his domain and Gojo's? What if he's just able to understand the techniques a lot better because he's got so much energy, he's got the 6 eyes now, he can see how things work and they operate in even more detail. So what if he's able to do something like that? What if it becomes infinite, unequivocal love, kind of like, so we've already talked about Shiro, the Unlimited Blade Works from Fate Stay Night. What about Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh had the quote-unquote basically original version of Unlimited Blade Works, which is the Gate of Babylon, which has a prototype of every weapon ever created. So what if Yuta's got something like that? Because don't forget, Rika has an infinite space inside her as well that almost works similar to like the 10 shadows, in that she can store curse techniques in there. So it's really exciting. I'm like to think about. The more I say it, the more I actually believe. Like, if Yuta can really get his bearings, how is Sukuna going to survive this? He's obviously going to, because, like I said, I think the story's going to show us that, yeah, he was the strongest because he was Satoru Gojo, not just because he was the strongest. He wasn't just the strongest. So I think that's a lesson the story is trying to teach us. There's just so many things that Yuta could do. He could probably, like, he's already got a beam similar to Hollow Purple. Not similar. He's got that beam of cursed energy. What if it helps him understand how to operate with Hollow Purple even better? And then another thing we gotta look at is, what even is Rika? Like, we know what Rika is, right? We know how he created her. He entrapped the soul of a childhood friend who died because he didn't want her to go. But, like, is she a cursed spirit or is she a Shikigami? And then I've noticed in JK we've got a lot of like different spectral beings. So we've got even the Seance beasts, like they're like spiritual creatures. What category does Rika fall under? Is she going to be bound by the ring? Because they do say that love is the strongest curse of all. So I'm just excited to see what could go down with Yuta and Rika in the future and in the future chapters. Hoping Gege gets well. This is basically all I've got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, a thumbs up, comment would really help. I want to hear your theories as well. What do you think Yuta's abilities are going to be? Personally, I just think that Yuta's going to become like, as the chapters progress, he's going to become like a Superman. Maybe he'll get lost in the high of having Gojo's abilities. Maybe he's just going to think, yeah, like as he starts to get into it, he becomes like Gojo. Or maybe it's going to go down a better, different route where it's like yin and yang. The two come together and form something even better than the two halves. The whole forms something better than the two halves. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Yeah.